All right, so today on this Warhammer 40K competitive battle report, we have the Necron Awakened Dynasty versus the Chaos Demons, Shadow Legion specifically. And if you hadn't already noticed, we have a special guest in the house today, fellow team member Tom himself. How you doing, man?
Dude, we are doing good. This is a little new for me, as you're very aware, and everybody on the team is aware. I've been a mono Imperial Guard player for about 2 years now. I was any other faction was heresy as far as I was concerned. So branching out into a new faction has been really interesting. And Shadow Legion is very different than Imperial Guard. I will tell you that. But
I couldn't think of a more polar opposite play style. So it's pretty cool to see. And Tom is definitely no slouch as far as a player, so he's been able to pick it up very quickly, which is cool to see. So this is going to be very good practice. If I could talk, good practice for the old Necrons today. But moving on to the report here. So this is a 3-hour game. Obviously, we're condensing out into 25 minutes, 30 minutes-ish, giving you what worked, what didn't work, and simply passing that knowledge into you. So if that's something that interests you, please stick around because we're going to be going over a lot of good tactics and strategies that hopefully you can take into your next game. So whether you're playing Necrons, whether you're playing Demons, whether you're playing Space Marines, it doesn't really matter. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this video today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we're playing Lichpin. We're playing Tipping Point. We are also on Layout 2 GW Deployment, which is a fairly open board as far as shooting lanes go. There's not the best staging points. And before we get farther into the game, I do want to flip over to the deployment. And by deployment, I actually mean armies or pictures, if you will. And Tom was kind enough to give us a screenshot of his list. So if you want to give us just a 30-second, just from high level, top down, what is this list? What are you trying to do?
yeah, so this is a Shadow Legion list. If anyone's not familiar, Shadow Legion is a mix of CSM and demons. Part of the reason why it's so strong at the moment is that that's giving you some of the best units from both armies. There are a couple different ways you can approach Shadow Legion at the moment. A common theme of often demon lists is people trying to go monster mash and just trying to get as much damage as possible. This actually isn't that. This is really heavy emphasis on the MSU scoring. So basically, the way the list works, it's got two big monsters in the form of Be'lakor and the Fade Thirster. If you're not familiar with the Fade Thirster, that's an enhancement in Shadow Legion, which is somewhat broken, some people would say, which essentially means the Bloodthirster, as soon as he kills something in combat, he's going to pop up into the sky and not let you kill him, or not trade like a normal unit would. But yeah, essentially the way this army works is just two big guys in the middle of the table, and then as much MSU scoring trash as I can fit. And between the dogs, who are so strong at the moment with their ability to jump up and down, and lots of little crap which moves fast, like Seekers and Screamers, it feels good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good list design. And I mean, more or less kind of, I mean, not something similar, but more definitely MSU style as well. But we got 3 DDAs on the menu. So we have been testing out not running the King. We got Xeris back in the list, and still a +1 to hit enhancement on the Hex Mark. I'm just not leaving home without it right now. And I think with the new mission pack, Phidians, their value has gone pretty high up. And we are running Race instead of the Warrior Blob. So, and if you want to see these lists a little bit more in depth, I'm going to have a paste bin link via the comments section if you want to check those out while you're watching the video. But let's get into the battle report, shall we? So I'm going to swing things over. I'm going to make sure that Tom can see this okay as well, which should be popping up on the screen now, which is perfect. And again, so we are on Tipping Point deployment. One thing to point out with this layout is, as far as your natural expansion, one reason we wanted to test this is because it's kind of an interesting deployment with this layout. And the reason I say that is because usually your natural expansion is the one that is closest outside your deployment zone, which you would usually say, oh, kind of like it's going to be obviously over here. The problem with that is that this is where Tom, or my opponent, really good staging wall is at the same time. So it creates this interesting situation where the objective that is easier to hold is actually farther away from your deployment zone. And you're going to see throughout this game, and what you can see from the score is, versus there are some things that went disastrously wrong on each side, which is, why Kylan got a 15 at the end of the game. And Tom got a 13 in round 2. But we'll talk about that. Why it's very easy with good players, especially on this layout where, you could really hand your opponent threes like every turn relatively easily. Is there anything you'd like to add, Tom, before we get into turn one?
I think you hit it on the head there. Basically, the one sentence summary is it's very easy to contest your opponent's expansion and inversely very hard to hold your natural expansion, which makes for a much more dynamic game of Warhammer than some of the other layouts may give you.
Yep. No, so true. So going into turn one, don't have to worry about primary because we're not playing Purge the Foe. So Tom, off the rip, he's going to get engaged on all fronts and secure no man's land. It's a pretty strong pull for him, mainly because he has a lot of scout units. He's already got Nurglings up the board. And it's just a very fast MSU type army. And so he's going to have no problem scoring these, but I'm going to pass it over to him and let him talk about his turn one and what he's thinking about going against this Necron list.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things you're seeing here is if you're not familiar with Shadow Legion, Be'lakor has 2 different auras, one of which is a lone op 18 to everything within 6 inches of him. So that's why you're seeing all these demons standing right out in the open. Exactly. So as long as you're stringing the back of the unit into that aura, you can quite aggressively stage and push units out into what would normally be standing in the open while still not being able to be shot. So what happened here is as soon as I realized that Kylan was going second, had bottom a turn, and was probably going to slam a 15 at the end of T5, I'm aware that I know I have to take the game to him. I need to do quite a lot of aggressive plays to try to create some sort of point delta to make up for that 15 points I know he's going to score at the end of T5. So essentially what you're seeing here is you're seeing all the units push up, spread wide, stage up in positions where he still can't get within 18 inches to shoot them without trading his unit, but they are already, exactly, there we go. They're already staged up and ready to score either now or in the subsequent turn. I think the most interesting play here is if we look at the bottom of the board, down where these Seekers have pushed up into this ruin. One of the things I noticed here was that on that flank of the board, if you see at the bottom right, Kylan's only got a unit of Scorpic destroyers and a destroyer lord down there. And by screening the bottom wall with the Seekers, I know that to come out and deny me that primary, he's going to have to throw one of those 2 units up to try to kill my Seekers. And whatever he throws up, I'm going to get to trade with. I think maybe we could consider this to be a bit of a deployment correction. Maybe perhaps the flayed ones in the middle could have come over in this direction here. I think that we identified after this game that we had a little bit of a problem going on with how you could trade your pieces at that bottom side of the board onto that objective.
Yeah. Biggest error of the game, I think, for me was that I not a massive deployment error, but we'll talk about it. Is there anything you'd want to comment on as far as
I think one of the interesting ones here might be the use of just throwing away Nurglings like that. The ability to throw down a 35-point infiltrator with the not on an objective. They could basically die immediately, but they're just there for the fact that they're going to, if I get the T1, they're going to move into the gap, deny him the ability to push something like a DDA into that space and get within 18 inches of the units which have just staged up on my natural expansion. So you're seeing a Beast of Nurgle and you're seeing a dog unit which look like they're standing out in the open, but actually they're just touching into Be'lakor's lone op aura, and the presence of those Nurglings in the middle means he can't put a DDA to get within 18 of them. So that's the wombo combo you're seeing at the top, and at the bottom you're just seeing Seekers thrown on the objective, because I know he has to come around the bottom wall to get into combat with them. And when he does that, I'm going to throw some dogs at him, some screamers. I can trade back and forth.
Yeah, no, super solid. So going into bot, and bear in mind that Tom also has double Havoc units with Deep Strike as well. So, he's got essentially 8 las cannons with sustain, like ready to rip.
It is important to note that 90% of the value of the Havocs is just the potential, right? The threat projection that I have 8 las cannons about to deep strike down is real, but they're all Stormtrooper las cannons, and they will miss every shot they have. But Kylan can't be sure about that. So
yeah. So so going into turn 1 here, we get Marked for Death and Cleanse. So not ideal, not super exciting. Definitely exposed. This was an interesting one in terms of how this played out. So I cycled Mark for Death, and we also get Established Locust, which you're going to see how I also get a 0. And this was, I think, probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, error of the game. So what I ended up doing is I moved out this Scorpec Lord. Okay, and this is what Tom and I talked about in the game, and I think this is what we're going to flesh on or hash out the most here and kind of move things along, because this is like probably one of the more important things to highlight. Is I was talking about after is these 2 units should have flip-flopped with each other. And the reason for that is because this unit here is 6 OC, and what problem it created was the Scorpec Lord is going to connect. They're both going to have the same charge. Both charges is going to be like 5 inches. The issue is not getting to this unit here. It's more making sure that I out-OC this point, and if he does Heroic Intervene, I have enough output to kill this unit and or this unit, because the Lord has only 4 attacks versus the Scorpec Lords have 12 attacks, full hit rerolls, and dev wounds. So the damage is way more. Also, and you have more OC.
Here, you should point out that unfortunately, the Scorpec Lord's profiles are just both horrendous into damage to demons, either the Seekers or the dogs. It's a strike, which is overkill and not enough volume, or a single damage sweep, which just doesn't kill enough of them either.
Yep. So what you're going to see happen here, we're going to fast forward here to the bottom of turn 1. What essentially this created is now, in order to make sure that I, like, in some way or fashion maybe held this point, was I had to shift the race the other direction when I want to push them towards the center, to force him to have to commit some sort of resource here next turn. So it denied me my ability to get Locust. It denied my ability to have him put something on the objective. There were like multiple things going on where that one little maneuver, and it's a really cool thing to highlight of how this can like cascade into a lot of other problems, unfortunately. So the Scorpec Lord charges in. He is exactly within 6 inches to Heroic Intervene. Now, the situation that we talked about is if the Scorpecs were right here, you have 1, 2, 3, something like that, where if they charge in, now what they're doing is they're connecting here, here, and here, right? So, or they base here and here, where essentially the dogs, they don't have the flexibility to wrap on the other side of the objective. And the Scorpecs can you could have enough Scorpecs to split to go after this unit here, and then one at the dogs, or just put all the Scorpecs into this unit here, and then just potentially consolidate on the objective.
It's really the volume of attacks that the Scorpecs would have given you here. As soon as I realized that it was just a single Scorpec Lord, who honestly probably doesn't even have the volume of attacks to pick up 1 unit of 5 2-in models, definitely doesn't have the volume to pick up 2. It's just a heroic intervention, which is just going to throw me onto the primary and get me 5 points. So a bit of a no-brainer there once that happened.
So, I mean, good placement by Tom here. I mean, I think it was like to very close. It was like to the millimeter, but he was definitely within 6. So I got this wrapped around here. Didn't they swing like a 10-inch charge or something? Or
they did slam a really big charge,
which happens. I mean, this is what it is.
It did hit a big charge, but the thing is with the dog bases, you also have a lot of play to block yourself out and then use the pile and console to get into different places. They are cavalry bases, so but that was an initial interesting play.
And then you're probably wondering, okay, so like when this was also like a test game where I was like, all right, well, let's see what these Havocs can do to a DDA. Let's test these rolls. I was like, all right, we're just gonna put these DDAs in the firing lane, because that's one thing that Shadow Legion. I mean, if they are running the Havocs, that is great. But if they're not running the Havocs, a lot of times they don't really have a lot of long-range anti-tank down the field. And there's not a lot of armies in the game that have the reliability or have the ability to drop in enough anti-tank in one firing lane to get rid of a DDA. So the Shadow Legion have a nice luxury there in terms of being able to double drop that unit in and also not being able to interact with it, which Tom's going to highlight with Lone Ops. So passing over the turn, I get a good old 0 on secondary, and then we're going to go to turn 2 over to Tom, and he's going to get Defend Stronghold and Establish Locus.
Yeah, so this is basically a bit of a win here in terms of the sense what the dogs and the Seekers have created on the bottom. Firstly, the Seekers passed their Battle Shock, so I now have another asset which isn't even engaged and can just run into the middle and do the Established Locus for free without handing out an asset. And then as Kylan mentioned here, so the big movement play you're going to see here is the Fade Thirster rushing down to the bottom corner to pick up the Lord. This is one of the more important units if you're playing Shadow Legion to understand. Basically, the Fade Thirster is moving 12 base and then 3d6 because he has advancing charge. So understanding where the Fade Thirster can go and what he can reliably pick up and then disappear without trading is an essential part to playing this army. And one of the things which I was trying to do here is just basically use him to wipe whatever Kylan pushed up most aggressively on the board, which in this case was the Scorpic Lord. And yeah, so I don't exactly remember what he did here, but I'm pretty sure the Fade Thirster whiffed because that's all he ever seems to do. But yeah, so the Fade Thirster's thrown over to the bottom. He's going to go into the Lord, and I think if you click on one, you're going to see the Havocs all deep strike in to pick up your central DDA. Yeah, exactly. So what I've done here is I can drop 2 units of Havocs because they are extremely unreliable, and one unit is not going to kill anything. One unit's going to miss all its shots, and then the other one may kill something. But I can drop 2 units of Havocs in to pick up a DDA. And what essentially is a macro game plan I'm trying to do here is keep them back in Be'lakor's Lone Aura in a place where even the side DDA can't move up to trade into them. And then I know if I can pick up enough of Kylan's big anti-tank in the first 3 turns, that's going to allow me to just be a bully with Be'lakor and the Fade Thirster at later stage in the game. And that's basically what we're going for here.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, I think my 600-point DDA investment, I think, killed like 80 points of Screamers, and I think that was it.
Pretty sure, pretty cool. Pretty good, yeah.
So, so Tom is going to get a big old 13 on primary because this went disastrously wrong. So he's going to hold these 2 objectives in this one. So he's going to get a 13 on primary, Defend Stronghold. That's just automatically happening when you pull it turn 2. And he gets Established Locus for 2 because I didn't, again, another problem with the Scorpex charging in. Now he's got a unit past Battle Shock. They can just go do an action because they're already on the mid board. And again, more free points for Tom. Love to see it. So going into turn bottom of 2, we get a 3 on primary because we are only holding this objective. And then we get Containment. And then bring it down. Bring it down, I cycle for a CP, and we get Storm Hostile objective. So not a bad pull this turn to make up for the very bad secondary positioning on my part for turn 1. So mainly what we're looking to do here is because we are playing on Tipping Point, it does give me a lot of actions in terms of doing containment on this board edge and this board edge. So I'm going to fast forward here, and you can see how that plays out. Let me make sure we drop that here.
Oh, just a note. It does look like the Fade Thirster, he did pick up the Scorpic Lord.
Yeah, he did pick up the Scorpic Lord.
He picked him up, he killed him, so he got to disappear. But then, of course, Kylan used a CP to reanimate him at the end. So,
Yep. So basically what we're trying to do this turn is really trying to limit Tom on primary. We just gave him a 13, and so definitely got to figure something out here quick with the mistakes made turn 1. So we do rapid ingress in a DDA on his turn, and so that way we're able to shift this up 10 inches. deny this primary, and then also shoot at the actually we shot at the dogs here to clean them off because the Scorpec Lord is trying to get value just killing the Screamers. And he did a good job positioning where I couldn't really do anything else or play the Scorpec Lord more aggressively because we have a heroic intervene threat with the Bloodthirster. You ingressed the Bloodthirster in, I think, as well after the
Yeah, that's one. If you're not familiar with Shadow Legion, one of the biggest challenges at the moment with the Bloodthirster, or called Fate Thirster when he has the enhancement, is the fact that it just keeps cycling, meaning he'll charge, he'll kill something, he'll disappear, and then he'll immediately rapid ingress in your opponent's turn. So the reason you've seen that Fate Thirster pop back in the middle is actually he left the board and now he's rapid ingressed right back into the middle again. And combined with Bellacor's Lone Op Aura, you can really drop this giant model right in the middle of the board once you've seen your opponent's movement and just charge right back into something else.
Yep. It's really good. It's really good. So we're just going to contain. I actually contained with a DDA. That was hilarious because it just literally has nothing to shoot at. Because after he popped the first DDA, I'm like, well, I guess they can do it. So we're not gonna show him a second one.
Just gonna do containment secondaries with these boys
for no apparent reason. And you can see here, this is kind of more or less what the race wanted to do. The first turn, I know somebody's gonna call me on coherency here, but a classic like in between pictures. So I probably had to like shift this around because that's clearly longer than 2 inches. But this is more or less what needed to happen turn one. And then we shift up Xeris, the Scorpec Lord, to try to clean up the dogs and have enough basically OC on the subjective that we can deny this one. And this is has to be very carefully done here, just because where he can pull and in shooting, because the dogs are still relatively durable with a 5-up invul, I believe, and 2 wounds. So, you know, he can spike on invuls and create problems. So you kind of have to plan ahead on that. But thankfully, at least this turn, everything more or less went according to plan. And you can see how it planned out where the dogs were cleared up. We had enough OC on the subjective to deny it. Deny here, killed these dogs, and then I don't know how the that was probably on your turn. I guess we killed those guys, and that was the score. Sorry, this is what ended up happening. The DDA shot, I had it backwards. The DDA shot at the Screamers, Scorpec Lord charged here, and then called it a day. So pass it over to Tom, top of 3. So he's going to get a 3 on primary. He's going to get Mark for Death, which he's just going to cycle this turn. He's doing pretty good on points, and he gets Assassination, which if you haven't played Awaken yet, we give Assassination out like candy. So easy 5 points, and he's just kind of sticking to the game plan. Let's press forward. But anything you want to highlight here?
Yeah, so you're seeing the Fate Thirster rush back into the same place he was 2 seconds ago. He's going to do something here which you try normally not to do, which is charge 2 units simultaneously. The Fate Thirster has a danger of that he can't reliably, although he can kill anything, he often can't kill anything. And he definitely doesn't have the volume of attacks to be hitting 2 targets at once. So if you get stuck with the second target, you're not going to be able to jump. One of the things which works well here, though, is that I'm okay with being stuck on the table down that bottom channel because the rest of Kylan's army is up at the top of the board. And even if I'm stuck on the board, he's not getting to me down there. This is also a point where you're going to see Be'lakor come into the game. Kylan's thrown up all 3 of his Resible Lords, I think, in the case of 2 Lords and Caesaris. So I know I just need to pick up, I would ideally need to be picking up some in different phases. I think I tried to pick up 1 in a shooting phase by throwing a whole bunch of Havocs into it. I don't recall if I end up actually picking one up and shooting. But with the knowledge that I'm then going to slam Be'lakor into the top one, I'm going to slam the Fate Thirster into the bottom one. And if we can pick up some of these Lords as well as the bottom DDA, Kylan doesn't have a whole lot of anti-tank left on the board. And I know the only other anti-tank piece is the DDA we see hidden top right. And what I do is I pull off swinging a long Plague Bearer charge off Caesaris to try and pile and console and then touch that DDA so it doesn't clap back into any of my bigs. And yeah, at this point, what I'm trying to do is basically start using the 2 big boys a little bit more aggressively because I know he doesn't have a lot of anti-tank left to challenge them at this point.
Yep. Yep. So it was a good, yeah, it was a really good turn. Yeah, you know, just some like little minor spacing things on my part with the double charge here with the Bloodthirster, kills the other DDA, leaves a Scorpec Lord there, which is fine. He's still going to hold this point. Swings over the Plague Bearers here off the pile and consolidate in order to essentially tie up, being within 1 inch of engagement range of this DDA to tie it up in engagement range. So it's locked in combat and eliminates the Scorpec Lord at the top of the board here. So I just have Xeris left. So overall, another really good turn for the demons, and just kind of like surgically taking out all of the really big threats in the list, and that are really just going to be threats to the Bloodthirster and Be'lakor, so that way they can just kind of push up the board and do whatever they want turn 4 and 5. So going into bottom of 3, I'm going to get a 3 on primary again. And we get Overwhelming Force and Defend Stronghold, which not a bad pull on the board state here. So we're mainly looking at getting the Plague Bearers off and killing the dogs, but I didn't have a really good way to interact with the dogs this turn, because I wanted more of the output to potentially be on the Bloodthirster with the Scorpex, but the Bloodthirster wasn't knocked down enough where the Scorpex are going to kill it. And so I think this was one of the weird swing points of the game where I think the Scorpex, they failed like a 5-inch rollable charge or something. And so, yeah, he ended up keeping the point. I was hoping, basically, it was, I set it up where the Scorpec Destroyer could fire 3 shots, and I'm like, okay, cool. If I can kill him off the point, then I don't need to use the Scorpex to charge. And that was kind of like my emergency plan. And then he whiffed, or I think you saved like both 5-ups. And then I was like, all right, well, fine. The Scorpex just go in and kill it. And the Scorpex can't even get in on, yeah, it was, it might have been a little bit longer. It might have been like a 6 or something, but it was very low.
You had 2 things in sequence which didn't work for you. Not killing the dogs was brutal in shooting, and then failing the charge and failing the reroll, because what I expected to happen here was the Bloodthirster was now going to kill the Lord and be free to just charge straight on into those 3 Scorpex, which were standing in no man's land now.
Yeah, yep. And we basically moved the DDA up this way to get, which is a weird dynamic, because on this layout, he can't actually get wholly within the footprint, so he can't see out even though he's tall enough. So the only way that he could really like see over here is like going backwards or towing up this way. So I'm trying to remember exactly why I moved this DDA here.
He was engaged. He couldn't do anything useful because
the yeah, that's right.
So he's just falling back.
I fell back to out OC him on the point, because I think this was 8 OC. And then
something like that. I think by slamming the DDA's 5 OC that you've just thrown on there.
Yeah, and then Be'lakor is Be'lakor's 5
base, and then the beast is 3. So I'm assuming that your DDA is 5, and probably Xeris is another 3, and that reminds me of the primary.
So we could tie the primary there, and then essentially bring the flayed ones out and everything else, and kill the rest of these Plague Bearers to get Overwhelming Force, and that essentially happened. And then as you can see here, the Scorpex are just sitting here doing nothing. So
you do get a nice spike back, though, because at the end of your movement phase, I rapid in the Chaos Lord unit you're seeing down at the bottom of the Legionnaires.
Right here.
Because I'm assuming that the Fade Thirster is going to kill the Scorpec Lord now, and then the Fade Thirster will be able to go straight forward into the Scorpex, and the Lord's unit will be able to rush up onto the objective.
But the Scorpec King, man, down to 1 wound, baby.
Every time. The ability of these Fade Thirsters to reliably kill anything is unparalleled. It is. If the Havocs are Stormtroopers by missing every shot, the Fade Thirster is some melee equivalent of that.
Even on the mortals, I think you rolled like 9 dice, and I think there was like 1 4-up or something.
He was on 1 wound even before the mortals at the end of the fight phase went off, and he still survived. It's crazy. How can you have the best enhancement in the game and still be a useless donkey? Like
this whole area of the board was just like disastrous. So going into turn 4, Tom's gonna get an 8 on primary because he holds this objective, and he holds this objective because I did not kill the dog. I think you auto pass the dog here. I'm
I auto
assuming, so
pass
you
the
get,
battle shock for sure for the 5
and
grand.
then yeah, let's go into your sequencing here, and that's
So
more or less board state.
yeah, so at this point, as we said, Kylan doesn't have enough anti-tank left. The hope was that we can start getting pretty obnoxious with what we're doing with the 2 big demons at this point. Be'lakor's at this point in reroll 1 Zora, no need to be hiding from anything, just throw him into the middle, try to get max value out of this guy. Annoyingly, because the Fade Thirster got stuck, there was a little bit of a strange interaction down here where essentially the only thing that the Lord unit was going to connect with was the Scorpec Lord. Sorry, I shouldn't say they're both Lord units. The Chaos Lord's unit was only going to be able to connect with one thing, which was the Scorpec Lord on 1 wound. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, in this movement phase, the Fade Thirster ends up just falling back to stand on an objective, which is a wild thing to do with one of the deadliest units in the game. Yeah, it is. So essentially, I can just park 5 more OC. And also at this stage in the game, if I'm not mistaken, is this turn 4 here?
Yeah, top of 4.
At this point, the other thing which I can do now is I can just try and tempt Kylan into going into big demons, which don't really need to die at this stage in the game. And if he goes into them and doesn't manage to kill them, he's really wasting resources at this point. So that's what we're trying to do, is use the 2 bigs as obnoxiously as possible. And then in the middle, you see the Lord's unit rush out to pick up this middle interaction. And a lot of these middle plays here are not necessarily optimal, but knowing that he is bottom of turn scoring, I need to try to take the game to him. So that's why you're seeing this happen here.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, pretty solid. So he falls back there to really just make sure he solidifies that point, gets a good amount of OC on there. Scorpec Lord gets rinsed with the Feel No Pain or Scorpec King. Flayed Ones die. DDA dies.
Yeah. And we have another nightmare interaction with a 1 wound idiot at the top. It's Mr. Cesaris this time.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, it was great, man. I mean, I knew I missed Zeris for a specific reason, man. It was great. It was great.
I do remember there was an important interaction here with the DDA at the top dying because it was on 1 wound.
Yeah, it was that 1 wound.
And then I pinged some form of charge into it to clip the last wound. I think the Havocs actually charged.
Yeah, the Havocs had to charge.
The Havocs charge. Turns out they're more reliable in melee than they are in shooting. And clipped the last wound off this to knock the OC. And my anticipation here was that Be'lakor was going to pick up Cesaris, which I guess is always a bad thing to count on. And I just end up stuck with Cesaris as always, and he doesn't go anywhere. But yeah.
Yep. So the Havocs, yeah, they end up charging in, killing the DDA. Going into bottom of 4, I'm going to get a 3 on primary again. And we get Assassination and Engage in all fronts, which isn't super bad, mainly because there was a character.
You have a Chaos Lord and 5 Space Marines standing in the middle of the board.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from going from guard, you don't realize how squishy basic Space Marine bodies are until you play this. This is wild how bad these guys die to anything. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we had a Scorpec lore back here with Scorpecs like ready to kind of counterpunch. So you're going to see those resources more or less shift up this way to basically guarantee that we can get rid of this unit this turn. I know I don't have enough output down at this bottom of the board to get rid of Mr. Bloodthirster here. So the best thing I can do is really just limit his points. And he only has 5/7 OC on this objective. So I'm literally just going to move those resources onto the point to deny him. And you're going to see that shift out here. And to basically give him at least an 8 on primary. And then you're seeing me. This was also a big point in the game where I'm like, well, we're just going to try to YOLO 9 a charge on the Ophidians, which I think if I remember correctly, they end up getting.
I think you fail because you end up standing there, and I'm chasing them to try to pick him up at the end of the game, so you don't get some bottom of turn score with them.
Yeah. Okay, I think that makes sense. That makes sense.
So one of the interesting ones to point out bottom of board here is how we've both just had a turn where our quote max lethality units were using just to stand on objectives for OC, which is interesting. That there is actually, you need to be conscious of not just always wanting to kill with your highest lethality units. That there are moments in games where the more value is found in just denying primary, even if it's your killiest unit, something as killy as a bloodthirster, and it just needs to be 5 OC standing on an objective.
Yeah, and I think too it helps too as far as like knowing your damage potential. Like, you know, I know 3 Scorpex are not going to get rid of the Bloodthirster, so it's like, well, how can I make them useful? Might as well just, even though it feels bad, but it's just, you know. And you're wondering like, oh, why don't you charge the Marines? Well, just heroic intervene and kill me anyway. So there's really not much interaction also, there.
Like we mentioned, there's a danger of going into a 20 wound or 18 wound monster on turn 4, where if you waste assets trying to kill it and you haven't killed it by the end of the game, you've essentially been wasting those assets. So I think you made the right decision here, but just denying the primary, and it was fine.
Yep. And then Ophidians, they come out, they try to do a 9-inch charge on these boys, and they end up failing to try to deny this point to give them a 3. So that was kind of unfortunate, but we at least did get assassination here. We cleaned up this brick. We have quite a bit of resources on here, and hey, man. What do we got over here?
Please make it stop.
What do we got over here,
man? And this, if you're not familiar, Bellacor's new upgraded melee profile slams. This is 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, probably wounding on 2s, because I think I lanced here. They're all like AP4 D6 plus 1 damage. We're talking like a ceiling potential limit of like 42 damage, and this boy is still there on 1 wound, and this was pretty disastrous. Yeah.
So yeah, then going into turn 5, he's gonna get in on primary again because Ophidians failed the charge. He's got like 5 OC or 6 OC on here compared to my 3. He's gonna get overwhelming force for 5, pretty easy because as you can see here, I got a lot of units on the objectives. And he's going to get no prisoners, which also like perfect pull. Couldn't have asked for a better pull on the last turn where the board state is. So easy 10. I'll let you talk from here. Bloodthirster shifts out. We got Chaos Lord unit moving up.
Yeah, so essentially what we were trying to do in a macro sense here was pick up the flanks, and then T5, we were going to throw everything we had into the middle, just throw the kitchen sink at him and try and deny his ability to score 15 bottom of T5. And the problem here was that if Be'lakor was not engaged, I think that may have been possible, but Be'lakor still being stuck with Mr. Caesaris meant that the Chaos Lord unit by itself wasn't going to be enough to pick up the middle. So we did, in general, do that plan. We cleaned up his flanks, and then we throwed what we could into the middle, but it wasn't quite enough at this point, I realized, but mainly because of Be'lakor. I needed Be'lakor's shooting and melee output combined to try to tag up the Wraith Brick and stop you from just scoring 15 bottom of turn.
Yeah, and then I think the spiciest play though, we got the Hounds over here coming in to YOLO charge the Hexmark, which they definitely banged the 9.
Yeah, this is such a good testament to that late game value of these units which go up and down. I know that was something you've covered in a video this week, which is definitely worth people checking out. The ability, if you can, to keep some of these units till late in the game when pockets open up at the backfield is pretty crazy.
And then, yeah, we more or less just kind of talked it out from here. We were pretty confident with like the race and the way the board state was. Like I could swing enough resources over. I think that's a nice thing to highlight with the Crypto Thralls, even though they're not giving up Cull the Horde anymore. It does allow you to stretch the unit out farther, especially in the late game where it's a little bit harder if you're down race to really stretch them out as far as on 2 points. And then shifting over resources here to hold this one. So we can essentially hold these at the end, and we get area denial and recover assets. And, you know, looking at the board, we're pretty confident that I can kill this Chaos Lord for area denial. And then we get recover with just 2 units. And that was pretty much the game. So 76-65 to the Shadow Legion. Very well played by Tom. You know, going back, obviously, excellent execution in terms of precisioning out these DDAs where they literally got no value this game. And, I mean, definitely some good lessons on both sides, but I think overall, I mean, Shadow Legion, at least in the latest like statistical reports, plays pretty darn well into Awakened. It's actually looks like one of our not very good matchups right now, and I can now getting more reps into it. I can see why, just because if they're not running double havocs, I think the game plan gets a little bit simpler. I don't know what else Shadow Legion runs besides double havocs for long range anti tank, but
You
the
could try a
combination,
Soul Grinder, but it's a little pricey for what it does. It's
yeah.
not the same volume of anti-tank shooting. I personally feel like at least 2 units of Last Cannon Havocs is pretty mandatory at the moment in this if you want some form of shooting presence.
Yeah, because it's one of those things like probably one of the highest value things in 40K is when you can kill something and they can't kill you back in return. And with the Havocs, like being able to drop in literally wherever they want and then moving Bellacore accordingly to get lone op where, they just shoot downfield and then it's like, well, I can't get to these Havocs or get within 18. You're literally losing stuff for nothing. And so it's an interesting puzzle to solve, to say the least. But I think no matter what, when both these armies go against each other, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be very grindy, just because we both have lots of stuff to do actions and get points with. But it'll be interesting to see how the lists develop, especially with points and everything else. And if you all stuck around, seriously appreciate you watching. Obviously, Tom being on the report today, and any last advice or anything you'd like to highlight with Shadow Legion?
I think it's all down to is the Fade Thirster about to get nerfed.
We'll see, man. I don't think it's that oppressive, but it is very, very strong. But
extremely feels bad uninteractive. I don't think that it is necessarily the strongest thing in the world, but when it does work, it feels bad. And that's normally something Games Workshop is conscious of getting out of the game. So, but that being said, I do have 10 possessed and a Master of Possession sitting on my table, waiting for them to say Fade to Darkness and infantry only. We're ready.
I heard they're good. I heard they're pretty good. But, anyways, drop a comment below if you like this format, if you want me to bring more like team members on from different armies. That was kind of always the goal from this channel when I got it started. I'm primarily a Necron player, but I really do want to bring other people on the channel with other armies because they have way more of an expertise with it than I ever could talk about or explain. And at the end of the day, it just gives you guys more value as well. So let me know what you guys thought of this format. It's a little bit longer. Maybe we'll try to bring it down a little bit shorter. But other than that, appreciate you, and we'll catch you in the next one.